Hi there, welcome back. It's Tuesday Plus. It's also an auction preview. We're coming up in a few weeks with the 43rd year, I think, of auctions here in Branson, Missouri. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you one of the stars of the show, absolutely without comparison. This is a 1930 Rolls-Royce Regent, and we'll explain a lot of that later on. 115 years ago, Charles Rolls and Henry Royce in London created a company called Rolls-Royce. Now, I'm going to jump forward just to get it out of the way. In 2003, Rolls-Royce has a new owner that manufactures the cars still in England. But the new owner of Rolls-Royce is BMW. Probably didn't know that. The cars are still magnificent. They are still hand-built. They are still what they started out being with the first Rolls-Royce that Charles and Henry built, which was the first Silver Ghost. And once entered into competition, it received the accolade from everybody. All of the journalists and everybody said, this is the finest motor car in the world. Wow. Okay, what about this one? This is serial number 8-372LR. And it was ordered by and first owned by a fellow named Charles F. Glore. Charles Glore. Well, he was an investment banker in Chicago and in New York. He made quite a fortune for himself. He was one of the founders, pay attention to the names, of Marshall Field, Glore, and Ward and Company. Well, you should know who Marshall Field is. It's one of the largest department stores in the world. I think you've probably heard of Montgomery Ward. You just never heard of Charles F. Glore. A lot of people hadn't heard of Charles because he was born, are you ready, in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Wow. And his beginning education was all in Eureka Springs. But then he migrated to the Chicago area. He went through the Lewis Institute. That's a very high-end, big-time deal to get into the Lewis Institute. And he came out of there as an investment banker, and he was very, very, very successful. So successful that he was able to order this 1930 Rolls-Royce Regent. Oh, he bought something else about the same time. Out in Lake Park, Illinois, right near Chicago. He had this architect designer build a home for him. The guy he contracted to do that was Frank Lloyd Wright, none other than. Wow. Okay, now in 1925, they started manufacturing the Phantom to replace the Silver Ghost. But what happened before that? Well, in 1919, this is right after the First World War, and the economy was tough in Europe, it was great in America, and the cars that were being purchased in America, well, basically Americans were buying more cars than the rest of the world combined. Well, Charles Rolls and Henry Royce were not stupid people, and they came over here and they bought the American Wire Wheel Company. The American Wire Wheel Company was in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then they formed Rolls-Royce USA. Wow. Actually, I think it was Rolls-Royce America, and they did that in 1919. So they started manufacturing cars in 1919 in the United States, which is why you should notice it's left-hand drive. This is a British car that's left-hand drive. All British cars made in Great Britain are right-hand drive. Not this one. Is there a better sound in the world than that? Wow. So Charles F. Glore held on to this car until 1943. And in 1943, he sold it to a Missourian named Sam Woodson. Sam Woodson lived in Polo, Missouri. I didn't even know where Polo, Missouri was. Anyway, Sam bought the car, and he drove it around, had fun with it for a few years, and then decided to do a restoration. Well, when you do a restoration on a Rolls Royce, you better know what you're doing. And that's where a fellow named John Holden of Kansas City stepped in. And John would drive over to Polo from Kansas City and he would help Sam out whenever he could. And the two of them worked on the restoration, and it was up in, I think, 1985. And Sam sadly passed away. And John bought the car from the estate. So John's from Kansas City. He moved the car back to Kansas City. And that is where he completed the restoration. Now, if you've kept track of Branson Auction over the years, you've seen some other really extraordinary Springfield Rolls Royces that we have sold. It's from the same collection, John Holden. So John completed this restoration, and it is magnificent to say the least. And it's going to be in our next sale, April 12th and 13th, here in Branson, Missouri. You know, I see an awful lot of cars, and I've played with a lot of them over the years, and every once in a while something hits me, it's just a little bit better than everything else. In most of the cars of the 30s that have rumble seats, what you will see is a step pad back here on the bumper, followed by a step pad here on the fender, where you then step into the rumble seat. Well, it's very awkward, and under most circumstances for most females, it's not very tidy. And Rolls-Royce understood this, and they did theirs a different way. You simply step on the running board and walk into the rumble seat. Isn't that magnificent? It's a small thing, but it becomes a huge thing. And it's one of the styling features of Rolls-Royce that makes it the fabulous car that it is today. So as I said, this one's in the auction April 12th and 13th, and so everybody says, Jim, why don't you give us an idea? This is rarefied air. This is not a cheap car. This is not inexpensive by any standards. You're going to be somewhere between $250,000 and $275,000, I should think, because the last three, two of which I had the pleasure of examining, but the last three were all in that same category, and none of them was restored to this level. It's a pretty fantastic car. It's a great opportunity for a collector of real history, and every owner is known, every mile is understood. There are no mysteries in this car, except for who's going to own it next. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.